welcome. You're watching the Policy Times and 21st episode of the Unleashing India Web Summit series. And just to introduce, it is one of my favorite topic that we're going to discuss today, and it is the trend globally when we talk about manufacturing in the world. Now, regarding this topic, I will come to later, but this session, Unleashing India Web Summit series, is chaired by Dr. P. Shekhar, who is the chairman of Global Smart Cities panel, and he has written around 80 books on different topics, different sectors, connecting their contribution to national growth and national nation building. During the COVID-19 crisis, we thought and realized that the the India, the country that we live in, needs a reincarnation or reorientation towards achieving bigger milestones. And how do we decide that? How do we do that? We realize that we need to bring the best minds from different sector to discuss and share their view how post COVID we leverage the challenges and opportunities that the COVID-19 crisis brings, and then we reach to what we want to. Global supply chain, like initially, like if we go back to 50 years, every product used to be produced by one single country. But later on, when we saw that the rise of China and Southeast Asia, the global supply chain expanded from one country to multi countries, multiple countries. So today, when we talk about that, one small laptop or a mobile phone is being manufactured and assembled. So it is manufactured in one country, one part is manufactured. So at least different parts, like if a mobile phone can have 500 parts, a couple of hundred parts will be manufactured by China, some parts will be manufactured by Taiwan or Vietnam or different Southeast Asian countries, or maybe the high-end products may be manufactured in United States. And that's how so the global supply chain now works in this crisis. So no country can confidently claim that I can produce everything and I can assemble a product at my own country. So that's now we are into a completely interdependent world. Without taking any more time, I want to welcome our speakers, experts of today's discussion, Captain T.S. Ramanujan, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Logistics Sector Skill Council and one of the best minds to talk on the global supply chain and logistics. Initially, we were talking that to be a global manufacturing powerhouse, India has to improve tremendously on the logistics supply chain equally as much as we need to also improvise ourselves in the global supply chain. With us also is Mr. S. Mukundan, who is a global supply chain management expert and head of PKG BU for TVS SCS and also founder of Flexol Packaging India Private Limited. So I want to welcome and hand over to Dr. P. Shekhar to kindly take over the session.
Thank you, Akram. As you said, 21st session, we started off casually, but we found there is so much of interest, so much of things to be done, that each sector has to have a very big role once COVID. In fact, when we say post-COVID, we mean even today as post-COVID, from the entry of COVID. We are not talking of exit of COVID, because some people believe that COVID is going to be there permanently. So life has to go on, even if it is there permanently. Because in our own opinion, COVID is an exaggerated fear. COVID is one more flu. But since even a flu has to be taken, by doing that, we are not belittling anything. So COVID has somehow come to us, has come as a World War III, has come as an invisible force, has come as a third party, something with negativity is doing on all of us. Economy is crashing throughout the world. But, we have to strategically come out. Indians are always good in any emergencies, and they are not one of those who are feared of any such thing. Now, coming directly to today's topic, global supply chain management. It is one of those topics which is very rarely understood, very little understood. So we got some of the best minds to talk about it. We may make anything and think, oh, that means just like a delivery boy. That means somebody will go and give it to you. Then we find, oh, something has to be packaged. Okay, you get some paper, wrap it up, and give it. And then they say, oh, when it is going, how will you go? Will you go by train or bus or whatever, or by tech? Then there's a huge process. And unless that process is complete, no manufacturing is complete, and no customer will ever be satisfied. And this particular part has generally been not taken care well globally, but people have understood it about 20, 30 years back globally. Not that globally people have done it too long ago. Our experts will say in so many words. But we have to take care. So global supply chain is right from a milkman giving you the milk, to a paperman giving you the paper, to a person who is supplying food to your house, to a big engineering, a nuclear power engineering, this thing where a huge tunnel type thing is going on the road. That's a huge way it has to be planned. Maybe some of the wagons which are going, the wagons itself coming from the factory to the railway station, it is again a huge process. Yeah, aeroplane. Once there was a joke that when India's first space was done, the so-called space capsule was going on a bullock cart. It is a famous picture, about 40-year-old picture. So we have passed through all those purview, and we, along with the world, know the importance of how a supply chain has to be taken care. And I will run a small. I will not run through the whole presentation. I will give you a preview of it. Yeah. So in this, we say again, some of my favorite thing which I want to tell everybody, that India, when we say India, we are 206 countries put together, and nature gives land and water, and we have got both in plenty because we use only 0.45% of our land area. The rest all things are there for future and for more usage. And water is there enough for us, enough even 10 times today's population, there's enough water. But wrong water is to be taken to the right place. It's the wrong place in the wrong this thing. There is somewhere there is an excess. There are some places where it is in short supply. And other than this, everything is human based. Now, when we see this particular sector of global supply chain, that's a huge requirement of manpower, huge requirement of business, there's a huge requirement of opportunities. And so, again, since there are experts, I'm not going to the bottom line of each slide because one slide will take 10 minutes, and I want to finish the whole thing in under 3 minutes' time. So, this is the type of market which is there for India and for the world. And we have to know this slide. I spent a little more time that this one of the slides which will give huge employment. Whatever happens to the development, if there is no employment generation, that sector is not doing justice. And there, be assured, this is a sector which gives maximum employment to people. So there is nothing shortage. This is 28 million people is the minimum which this particular sector will take care, and it will be almost few orders of magnitude more if it is taken properly. This includes, cold storage, because under cold storage is there today's type situation. If food has to be stored for longer time, you need cold storage. Many things has to be stored because they have to be used. The manufacturing is for 10 years together, means you have to store the balance portion. So again, that is going to give you a huge economic as well as employment potential. These are other in terms of area wise, in terms of year wise, in terms of logistic, just giving you an idea. Global supply chain, there are various technologies, is right from mobile technology to automobile technology to train technology to various ways in which the systems has to be taken. Here in this, even if your equipment is coming inside a van, people will come to know. And people will know when it is happening, what it is happening. The just in time of Japanese culture has to be followed by as many, so that we don't waste too much time in only looking for various subcomponents. So we are trying to simulate what will happen in 2025, just 4 years down the line. Here, technology of the highest grade, human of the highest grade has to be this. But One good thing is it doesn't say that everywhere the humans are highest grade. 90% of people required in supply chain, which is very good, is on the lowest grade. Because whatever we do, highest grade people cannot be on the, like an artificial intelligence. Almost 80% has to be on a higher grade. Whereas in this, 80% has to be on the lower grade and 20% has to be on the highest grade. So again, I will just, yeah. So because our experts are there to give more detail. Now, let me introduce our two panel experts. Captain Ramanujam is the one who will talk first. He is very oddly a submariner, which means he has done supply management into the sea itself, into various countries, into various phases of economy. But after being in defense, he is now an enlightened person in this particular sector, hardcore embedded into the system, and he's also a CEO of the Government of India's initiated system of Logistic Council of India. And he's not embedded only in a single system. He has got a multifarious activity. He is also a big person in skill development, because logistic requires huge amount of skill development of a particular grade, which all he do. So he will give the first talk. I'll introduce Mukundan as we go to the second topic. Captain Ramanujan, please.
Dr. Shekhar and Mr. Akram, very good afternoon to you and all the participants in this very important 21st such series of the program. Let me give a short intro of myself. Um, I have been in the submarines, and in the process of being in submarines, I have seen right from the good old analog computers which used to be there, operated by wheels, to the most modern high-tech technology that you can see, which nuclear submarines demand. So I have seen the entire gamut from manual computers, first generation, to the latest in the state of art. Having said that, these submarines, as you know, they're all space constrained. And some of you would have heard this term, dynamic programming. Now, dynamic programming started because submarines needed them. If you change the weight in one place, it affects the entire trim of the boat. And therefore, a change in one variable affected multiple variables. And that is what dynamic programming is all about. And now its application cuts across supply chain itself. It's what is Swiggy, for example? It's entirely dynamic programming, multiple vendors, multiple suppliers, multiple consumers. So all that I want to draw is a link through technology from submarines to Swiggy. The technology of dynamic programming still exists. And one thing that defense taught me, as far as our country goes, is the very often repeated phrase, but I would like to reiterate that our strength lies in our rural India. I mean, the mental strength, the stoicness to withstand anything, the resilience, these are all qualities which are there in our rural India, which we must leverage upon, which we have not. I moved on into the logistics area, and I again realized technology drives profit. 2008, there was, we all remember, was a time of recession. And our company in Bangalore had bought the latest of the Volvo vehicles. And we were all sitting with this entire fleet, and there was no cargo. So my promoter of the company, he was a young person who had worked in the US and come here and established this company. He told me, what can we do? So I said, I think we need to optimize on our asset usage. So we were one of the early birds, somewhere in the year of 2000, early 2008, to install GPS systems, receivers in all the vehicles that ran. In fact, we just bought some. We had a fleet of over 250 odd vehicles. We installed it in 30 vehicles, and we used to move it from vehicle to vehicle. And we optimized it and the other fleet, we put it under maintenance. So even during a recession, this road transportation ran at a profit. We created a control room so that we could optimize on our assets. I also realized within this company that we could complete projects within the time bound, within the given time and cost, provided we pay attention to the detail and work on ground, and things can happen. So we set up an ICD in Hassan, and we had all the usual problems that happens when you have to acquire land, etc. But then we did it, and it was well done in time within the cost and time. And ultimately, I also realized that good planning and implementation can ensure that we have safety in operations. How? If you do an analysis of anything that moves, whether it be transport, whether it be aircraft, whether it be vessels, maximum accidents happens in the time of dawn, not at night. At middle of the night, people are quite aware and alert. But early morning, there is a kind of a slackness which sets in, and most accidents happen. So what we did to our transport was we planned the route in such a way that it would halt and give the driver some time to do his routines. And the accident rates dramatically dropped. This advice we even gave it to Praxair, and then they also started following it. I moved on then to a startup of the TVS, which is called the TVS Training and Services. And this was a company from scratch where we started and doing the training for multiple automotive companies. And this is where I really realized the importance of vocational training. I won't name the university, but the dean placements one day gave me a call and said that her job is at stake. There are over 300 students with arrears in various subjects. Can you do something for them? At that point in time, we were training for the new Royal Enfield factory at Oragadam. In fact, the entire assembly line, we used to train them. And so I said, okay, we will train them, these candidates who had failed in subjects, in the two-wheeler maintenance technician. Until this date, the program is on. And what we used to do was we gave them a kind of a 4-week training, 1 week of theory, and 2.5 weeks of practical assembling of a motorcycle. We used to take 45 minutes to assemble a bullet on a conveyor, 1 hour 15 minutes to disassemble this bullet. And the same candidates were then attached with dealers where they got a fixed salary of 7,500 and something more they used to make on the side for repairing the vehicles. So what I'm trying to say is vocational training gave candidates who had done higher education and could not succeed a pathway for their future. I also realized that there is a total lack of awareness about many subjects. I will again recount it with an anecdote. We were doing a program for the TN IFAD, Tamil Nadu International Fund for Agriculture and Development, which was a tsunami relief program. So I went to one of the mobilization drives, and the regional officer, he introduced me to a boy. He said this boy lost both his parents during the tsunami. He came in a torn short, a torn vest, and he said he's just 5th class. Can you take him? We needed welders. Then I asked him, but 5th class is a lower educational qualification. But I said, let me give it a try. This boy happened to hail from the Irular community, which is a snake catching community down south, and his name was Ilango. So Ilango, I told him, you will join, but beg, borrow, steal, you come with one good pair of civils, rest I will take care. And he came, I still remember, with a black trouser and a blue checked shirt. And that boy, by his ancestral hereditary kind of a talent of a steady hand, excelled in the building the program. I then found him a job in Sundaram Fasteners. He joined it at 13,000. And within some 3 to 4 months, he came back to me and said that, sir, I got a first increment, 5,000 rupees. He was earning 18,000 rupees. And this boy was nothing but a 5th class pass who knew nothing about, had never even heard about welding, but had a steady hand. So what I'm trying to say is a lack of awareness in the rural population prevents them from excelling in some career which they very well can. I moved on to the Logistics Skill Council then, and I realized that the main thing that is bugging the sector is the total non aspirational kind of a nature of the sector. Everybody thinks that this is a sector which they land up by default. And when I say that, starting right from the MDs of companies right down to bottom, I won't name the person with an IIT alumni, IIM Calcutta alumni, who is heading one of the leading companies. When I met him first time, he's a governing council member also. When I met him first time, he said, my batchmates were wondering when I joined this company, how can you join a logistics of all things? Yeah, why don't you join something which is much more, more so-called glamorous. Uh, and then you go on to the drivers, at the bottom of the pyramid. The age for entry is 18 years, but the average age of the driver is 26 years, which means 8 years this poor fellow has gone and knocked at multiple doors, found them all shut, and by default, finally, he has landed up in this driving profession. So we need to make this aspirational. Technology again is here to stay. We need to create people who are able to multitask. In our country, multitasking is a norm rather than an exception. And then at the end of the day, many of the jobs are repetitive by nature. Somebody must pick, and somebody must pick, say, 1,200 picks per day. And the next day, come back again and do another 1,200 picks a day. And then come back again and do that repetitively 24/7. It needs an attitude. Not everybody can do it, but those who can, we must encourage them, give them, empower them that this too is a job in which if you excel, you can move on. So there must be a horizontal and vertical progression which needs to be created, which is what we have done under the National Skill Qualifications Framework, under the guidance of the Ministry of Skill Development and the National Skill Development Corporation. So that's a little about myself, which I've packaged. So coming on to the main thrust of this topic's discussion today. What are the drivers for for the sector? This government has taken very major steps for this logistics sector. First, it has created a logistics division under the Ministry of Commerce. For the first time, so to say, let us use the very colloquial term, there's a MyBup for this sector, which was had all over the place. Being a horizontal sector, you had a linkage with shipping, you had a linkage with road transport, you had a linkage with aviation, you had a linkage with the highways, you had a linkage with the customs, you had, of course, had a linkage with the Ministry of Commerce. So here was one entity that was created at the central level, which could kind of pull all the strings together. And similarly, this is now going to go on into the federal structure. This logistics division has now created what is called the new National Logistics Policy. We understand that this may even become an act. This will then go on and specify the roles of the various logistics operators, which in turn would possibly, the unorganized sector, so to say, will become much more organized. So this is a work in progress that's happening. The second major thing which has been thrust on us because of the Chinese incursion in Ladakh is the fact that possibly there is going to be more shift of manufacturing out of China into Far Eastern countries and India. Vietnam, Indonesia, India, all could gain in this particular new geopolitical kind of an environment. Once that happens, that's going to drive the whole country's logistics activity as well. Because manufacturing and logistics are kind of hand in glove, and therefore, once manufacturing picks up, automatically logistics too would scale up. The third is warehousing and cold chain. This has been given the infrastructure status by the government. which means that credits are available as lesser interest. And this has come at the right time. In fact, if you look at it globally, India's warehousing cost is the cheapest. And incidentally, Hyderabad is the first number one cheapest in the world, and 7 times cheaper than London, which is the costliest. And in fact, all our Indian cities come within the top 25. Say Hyderabad, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Pune, Bangalore, NCR, Chennai, all are within the top 25 cities. All this gives our subcontinent the position of becoming the potential position of becoming the warehousing hub of the world. Now you link that with the manufacturing that is likely to shift, and then you see the huge amount of possibilities that can get created if manufacturing shifts to Far East and we become the warehousing value-added hub of the world. Automatically you see a huge amount of potential developing. Along with this is the new thrust of the Ministry of Shipping in creating transshipment ports. Uh, this is, we've always been saying that, but not kind of taken it to its logical conclusion. And if we develop this as a transshipment cluster, for example, in the East Coast, if you look at down south, you have Chennai, Krishnapatnam, Ennore Port. You go a little north, you have Visakhapatnam, Gangavaram, Kakinada. These are all clusters available which can be very well made into transshipment ports. Similarly, on the western side, Vizhinjam, Cochin, or maybe Mumbai and the cluster there, Vadavan, etc. So if you look at this transshipment ports, manufacturing shifting, and the fact that we already have the cost cheap out here to create a warehousing hub, it creates a huge potential for India to become the logistics capital of the world itself. The distance from, as I was saying, from the west coast of India to the east coast of America, and from the east coast of India to the west coast of America is the same, equal to 11,000 nautical miles. So if you see globally, we are smack in the middle of the global supply chain. And I think this is a potential which we need to further exploit. We have already some little trials have been done also in the international north-south corridor, bridging through the Iran and the Russian railway. I think these are all projects which need to be taken to their logical conclusion. Coming back closer to home, to the domestic supply chain, the government has announced the policy in the agri sector for the national agricultural market and the abolition of APMC. This is a major game changer. ENAM, right now, of course, it's an information portal. Once it becomes a transaction portal, then it opens up a huge kind of possibilities for the people engaged in the agri sector. Especially, you will have a new age agri-techpreneur who knows about the warehousing, who knows about the product, who knows about the IT platform, who knows the buyer, who knows the farmer, and hence kind of becomes more of a kind of an entrepreneur in this entire agri supply chain. Swachh Bharat has been there for quite some time now. Zero effect, we have said. This leads us to the next concept of a circular economy, wherein we utilize all our resources. And once we say that, automatically there's going to be an impact in our logistics sector as well. Atmanirbhar Bharat is again a policy which has been announced, which is basically, it is basically produce within thrust and import if you must. I think that is the broad policy for this. I think this again opens up multiple opportunities even within the logistics sector to produce things which we were otherwise importing. And of course, needless to say, e-commerce is going to be a very big driver going forward. We have seen how the pandemic, despite everything else, ensured our essential supplies are available at home. In fact, this pandemic has brought to the fore three types of warriors. The first is the community that I hail from, up north, the soldiers who held fort despite provocation and fraud done by the Chinese. Second is, of course, our corona warriors, the doctors, the nurses, the medical staff who have been on the job despite everything, stretched to the full but still delivering. And the third is, as I say, the unsung warriors who are the logistics people. For every one delivery boy, remember there were three at the back of the warehouse feeding him. And further, if you go beyond, there are another three collecting it from the supplier, and so on and so forth. All these links held fort. Similarly, in fact, the aviation sector itself has been kept buoyant by nothing but air cargo. In these difficult times, it is air cargo which has kept the aviation sector afloat, and that's happened because downstream logistics has been absolutely held hands. All the links in this chain, as Mr. Akram brought out, held strong. I think we must leverage on this, further strengthen them, and once we do that, I think sky is the limit. I'll stop here. Well, I'll take it on further once Ms. Mukundan starts.
Thank you, Ramanujam. You have kept up your experience, kept up the schedule, you have kept up the linkages. Logistic is everything about linkages. It is just like a relay race. So you are given the relay race of your own self first, of why from a defense man coming into logistic was really good to hear. Now, second, our speaker himself is a relay man, you know, a global relay man. Mukundan, I would like you also to say a few words about yourself, but whatever little I know, which is very enchanting to me, here is a man who has, studied in various countries, employed in various countries, and what sort of countries? He has lived in Japan, he has lived in South Korea, he has lived in Singapore, he has lived in China, he has lived in USA, and I do not know which all major countries he has missed. So I would like him to say a few words about his personal career, and then go over to the professional thing where he is doing an extremely good job. And some of the thing which he is doing is so enchanting that even a smallest vegetable vendor would like to use it on a zero cost basis, neutralized cost basis, not zero cost, neutralized cost basis. Yes, Mukundan, please, can you take the mic?
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Akram. Thank you, Captain. Thanks to all the attendees of this forum. Really appreciate this opportunity to share my thoughts around what is actually happening and how can we build a very resilient, stronger supply chain community, and in that process make India much more stronger in the global scene. Doctor asked me to introduce myself. Basically, every day is a learning day to me. The best way I can describe myself is I'm a learner. Wherever I see non-standardization, I see an opportunity. In fact, I came into the supply chain by choice, looking at a non-standardized situation. Of course, from my academics and all that, basically an engineer by profession, IIT alumnus, and then work for large Fortune 50 companies like Hewlett Packard, Agilent Technologies, Canon, and all that. And then, came back to India for good in 2006, started a series of companies, all in the knowledge services space, and then done about 13 of those stints so far. And Flexol is my 9th avatar. TVS Supply Chain is a joint venture partner for Flexol, and we are into hardcore packaging, this part of supply chain. So I'll switch to the topic. In fact, when I used to work for Hewlett Packard in Bangalore, in more or less in materials and manufacturing management. And we had a very critical shipment, which had about 189 box. I still remember these numbers very well because that is the one that changed my career path from a manufacturing guy to a supply chain guy. By the way, at that time, I'm talking about 1991, 92, there was no word like supply chain in India. We were used to call logistics, warehousing, transportation, all of that. But this whole world of supply chain, the word coined itself over a period of time. So we were expecting a shipment of 189 boxes to be delivered to, I remember, a computer company in Bombay. And in Bangalore Customs, they recovered 188 boxes. The 189th box was missing, and that had all the crucial cables. So everything, the documentation was perfect. The airline had handed it over to MSIL. MSIL had handed it over, was the custodian. Our clearing agent was actually about to take delivery of 189 boxes. So on documentation, everything was correct. 189 has been accounted, all of that. But then we couldn't spot the last box, which is the 189th box. So everybody searched, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days over. And then obviously SOS came in, and then I said, I can't sit on this like this forever. So let myself go to the warehouse and see what is happening. Because if there is somebody who had taken the box, somebody else has taken the box, we could be the victim. But nevertheless, that does not seem to be the case. So I went to the warehouse because, on the other hand, a customer was about to charge the non-delivery penalty and all that. And so one full day I spent in the warehouse, but I couldn't spot the 118th box. So out of curiosity, towards the very end of the day, I was searching near the customs inspector area, and then found that he was sitting on the box. Actually, he had put a towel on the box. Honestly, this was a real experience. And he had put a towel on the box and made it as his chair, because his original chair did not have the seat knots. So this taught me that there was absolutely no standardization in the way we used to store in the warehouse, the way we used to count, the way we used to allow people to take delivery. I can easily go inside and pick up some other box, and then grease a few palms there, and then I can still do away with it. So I said, okay, this is going to be the opportunity area for me to kind of do something. And that is exactly the day on which I made my mind to get into supply chain. Of course, as I said, the supply chain as a word did not exist at that time. It was more or less like logistics, transportation, whatever. And then slowly, globally, this whole word of supply chain came in. And then, of course, migrated. The reason why I'm saying this is, as Captain said, many people think that supply chain does not give career prospects, or it does not allow a supply chain guy to be a CEO. But I can equally tell you that there are at least 10% of companies which I have interacted with, where supply chain professionals in the companies have really reached the top, CXX level kind of people. So I think it is time we kind of remove the misnomer that supply chain is not an opportunity growth area. Rather, we should take it up upon ourselves and then seen as a problem solver in the supply chain than a problem creator. That's this thing. So what is it that we are seeing today? Let me give you a perspective, and then I'll share with you how we think the future is going to be. Now, as Captain mentioned correctly, supply chain professionals are unsung warriors, because every time you see a medicine delivered to a pharmacy or a medicine delivered to a hospital, there is a supply chain that is working. If that supply chain is broken, obviously we'll see shortages. Fortunately, in the last few months, at least in India, we have not seen many instances where critical supplies, particularly medical supplies, were in short demand. So that means there is a robust supply chain. Yes, there are kiosks, there are heartburns, there are people who work 24 hours continually, there are truck drivers who drive trucks 24 hours a day without any stoppage. Yes, these are all there. But nevertheless, I think each of these unsung warriors have made sure that the supply chain has worked. Now, what I see as a trend, first of all, I think is that there is going to be the change that's going to be imminent. Everybody is talking about manufacturing relocation to India. Let's remember that China is at least 7 times more in terms of manufacturing capacity than India. So it is not going to be just overnight or a flip of a switch where everybody will start to come into India, put money, start manufacturing. I think we need to be prepared for a slow process. Nevertheless, it's going to be a sustainable process whereby more and more manufacturing is going to happen, because manufacturing is not per se manufacturing. It requires a lot of people, it requires infrastructure. And if we have to commit to a customer who is sitting 7,000 miles away, that his product will be delivered on the 4th day from the day it is produced in India, I think that requires a very, very robust planning, and that requires a very robust infrastructure that can support that plan so that we commit to what we do. So first and foremost, I think this COVID, as COVIDonomics I call, has really thrust upon us a situation where we either see it as an opportunity or we see it as a doom. I think Indians are generally loving opportunities. That is why we always ride in the bus, hanging in the footboard, all of that. So I think we need to see this COVIDonomics as an opportunity thrust upon us, whereby we can redefine the rules of the game. I'm seeing a lot of companies which are doing a lot of process tweaking. They are also focusing on cost improvement opportunities. They are also focusing on alternate methods of doing things, a little bit of automation here and there, quality consciousness, all of that. I think these progressive companies will stand out to be the winners when we get to the new normal. The new normal is definitely going to be very different from the old ways of doing business. We cannot talk supply chain in days. We have to start talking supply chain in hours and minutes, and we have to start to talk supply chain in windows of plus minus 2 hours rather than today you may get the shipment, failing which you may get it tomorrow. I think those kinds of statements are not going to stand the test. So my first and foremost observation is that definitely there's going to be a global footprint realignment. Manufacturing is predominantly China and Southeast Asian countries, very limited in the US and Europe, is bound to change. It is bound to come to India in some form. And I think we need to seize the opportunity to be able to, in spite of all the challenges, to be able to demonstrate to the world that we are good in planning, we are good in execution. There will always be challenges in infrastructure. Nevertheless, even the best of the countries today, I come from Singapore, meaning I'm a Singaporean. Even Singapore has certain challenges in terms of supply chain. But instead of amplifying on those challenges, we tend to accept that as the norm and then work around it. And that is a new norm that we are all going to be. So let's kind of raise ourselves. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of opportunity in manufacturing, plenty of opportunity in distribution. When I mean distribution, even within the country, the way we are distributing today leads to shrinkages, damages, particularly in food. When I'm going to be talking about it in a few minutes, we need to get to the new normal. Understand that whatever we produce is commercially exploited, which means there is a value attached to it, and that value has to be bought in. Be it a fruit, be it an iPhone, be it whatever television, be it earth-moving equipment. I think all these things are going to say that we need to raise ourselves to the opportunity that COVIDonomics has provided us and be successful on that. The second is, I see that in a lot of papers, we see that a lot of IT professionals are losing their jobs. Some are turning into entrepreneurs, all of that. I think Captain will agree that this field of supply chain, if you call it, this field itself has multiple segments inside. For example, even a truck driver can identify himself to be a supply chain specialist. He need not have to just drive a truck. If he knows how to use a smartphone, he can pick up the goods, enter some data in the smartphone, update the ERP sitting somewhere else, and then deliver it at a particular point, take the proof of delivery, and enable a commercial transaction to follow. So from the employment situation, I see that there is going to be a trend whereby many of the employees today could become self-employed people. They could also become micro entrepreneurs, and they could also become full-fledged entrepreneurs of large corporations. What I mean by that is that this is an opportunity whereby if we have core strengths in terms of risk taking, if we have core strength in terms of interest in the supply chain area, and if we want to vet ourselves and be part of the challenging opportunity that is present, I think this micro entrepreneurship or self-employment opportunities are going to be very high. Now, I see that the security guard in my house drives a Uber taxi. He's also a Swiggy delivery guy today. Now, his profession was security guard, and he is an ex-military man, ex-serviceman, and I have a lot of regard for him. But then I see that he has taken a loan. He drives a Uber for 5-6 hours, I think, and then he operates as a kind of Swiggy delivery guy for 5-6 hours, and then he comes to my house. Of course, he has to do a 12-hour wake-up job, but of course he sleeps very well because he works otherwise. But I don't mind that because at least he's there as a person outside the gate so that people won't be seen. So long story short, I think we are going to see a transition from a pure play employment to entrepreneurship. Third topic I'm seeing is that there's going to be technology that is going to be used in multiple ways in supply chain. Even today, we use GPS, we use a lot of tags, we use IoT, we use machine learning, all of that, but leave all that fad outside. I think if you really look at it and say, if a good originates 100 kilometers from where I live, and then if that good has to come to me in a certain format, people generally mistake speed versus certainty. I always say that supply chain is all about certainty. It need not be speed. People are not saying that I'm going to place an order today and within 2 minutes I expect your product. But for Swiggy's and the Swiggy's of the food delivery, other than that, most of the time what people are looking for is, I place the order, please tell me when are you going to deliver? And that window cannot be like I will deliver anywhere between 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m., which means I need to sit in the house for 12 hours waiting for when this guy would come. Of course, there are technologies that are there even to track where this guy is at any point of time. But nevertheless, supply chain is also about certainty. Certainty means that we are processing your order, we will deliver it between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. on so and so date. And that is a lot more better than just leave it very open. So where we are seeing a lot of technology adoption happen in supply chain, starting with, of course, GPS. Most of the trucks in India today, I think in some way or the other, either the truck has a GPS or the driver has a smartphone, which can locate him. So 80% of our trucks in that range, I think, has GPS. That's a very good thing. And then there are also technologies that are enabling this GPS. For example, most of the packaging containers have a label. It could be a barcode, it could be a QR code, it could be a temperature sensitive tag. And then these things are enabling, rather than entering a data by manual means, they are enabling some kind of a scanning to be done so that data can be captured correctly. Otherwise, usually people make a mistake in putting that number, then you are creating two problems. One, you are chasing a wrong box and you have lost track of the right box. So I see a lot of technology adoption happening, and that is going to accelerate as we pass through this phase and then get into the post-COVID kind of thing. The fourth area that I'm really keen and I really want to see is Indian professionals who are very good in supply chain in India become globally accepted supply chain professionals, irrespective of location. I think today working from home, working from remote are all becoming very normal. I already know two people in the last 3 months who have been hired by global multinationals as global supply chain heads operating from India to begin with, because there is no travel and all that. The entire process of interview, everything was done by phone. And now they're actually controlling probably $200, $300 million worth of inventory that is moving across the globe and controlling all of that sitting in India. So supply chain is an area where, again, it's not rocket science, but at the same time, it requires a huge mind share of 24/7 commitment. You get calls right at 2 a.m. in the morning, still you need to be able to attend it, and Indians are very good at it. Second is, it also requires an analytical and a critical problem solving skill, which I believe it comes to us very naturally. So where I'm seeing as a trend post-COVID would be that there will be recognition that serving 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion people amidst all these crises, many of the supply chain heroes who have demonstrated their successes within their organization will become globally visible. And these people will be the right candidates to become globally accepted supply chain professionals. Of course, I'm not talking about a small warehouse operator, but a supply chain planner, a supply chain analyst, a supply chain head of supply chain who's controlling the entire hubs and spokes, all of that. The last but not least, I think we are entering a phase whereby lot of things which used to be taken for granted, like lifelong employment. I gain one skill, I can do live with it for my this thing. I can be a teacher right from my start until I retire. I can be a warehouse operator when I join the job at 22, and I retire as a warehouse operator when I'm becoming 58. I think those beliefs will have to be taken away from us. I think upskilling is one area. I didn't want to talk too much on that because Captain has already mentioned the importance of upskilling. And I think upskilling not only in the core domain that we are in, which means it could be warehouse operation, it could be transportation specialist, it could be packaging specialist, but also IT enablement that comes along with that. Now, I've seen a lot of people transform from just being a packaging specialist to be a packaging designer. I think we are very creative. In my view, I still believe that we are very, very creative in our general approach to things. And that creativity and that innovative mind, if it is combined with the right skills of our domain, will produce excellent supply chain professionals, which we will be proud of in manufacturing things in India and globally supplying it, as well as in being of support to the world. So with that, I kind of want to wrap it up, and positive days are ahead. I'm very bullish. I'm sure supply chain is going to stay forever. I always compare supply chain with a surgeon and a robot doing a surgery. For example, if we need to get a surgery done, and if somebody tells me that a robot will do your surgery without the help of a doctor, then I would say no to it. So I think supply chain is very similar to that, whereby people are required, people have to make decisions, people will become very good in making those strategic decisions. For example, something coming from Korea to India has to be diverted to Singapore, something coming from Singapore to US has to be stopped in between and then transshipped to London. These are all decisions every supply chain, global supply chain professional takes it today. And these skills will not be delegated to a machine, in my view. I think supply chain in that sense will stay forever. So let's all make sure that the future is bright for all of us. With that, I'll kind of close it and give it back to Doctor.
Thank you, Mukundan. Talking of supply chain during COVID time has some interesting analogy. The best supply chain seems to have been followed by COVID itself. It was created somewhere in some corner, nobody knows where. And the way it has systematically spread, I don't think as humans we have ever been able to spread. So it is sad, but somewhere we need to know how it has spread, why it has spread, what sort of supply chain management, the way it has planned itself or planned by somebody, as some people say, has spread, is something which we should know. Every corner of the world, every corner of the place, it has somehow gotten. And it gives a core of the word supply chain. Supply chain means something has to go, even though it is negative, but it done the negative portion properly. So coming to the main thrust of supply chain, which has been touched by both the experts, is the employment generation. Because today in India and in the world, we need employment. And it was somewhere, being taken care in tourism industry. Now, tourism industry, I do not know when it will revive. Unfortunately, it is just dead. Even religious tourism, which was consisting of 200 million people, religious tourists, they're all today, I don't know what numbers are there, not even 1% of it. So supply chain has got this dual responsibility. Of course, supply chain cannot see employment as its core competence, but it is the only field where it has to come in picture. Like you rightly said, that it is there to stay, and it is there to contribute, and it is there to compute. Why I'm saying the compute? People should take that into their when they do the costing, that this much will be there for proper delivery. And when we did some computation, it came to some 28 million people. But I still believe it will be a lot more than that. Because after all, the demands are high. Whatever we may say, the payment capacities are good in India today. It is not as bad as it was years ago. It may not be anywhere as good as Western world and others have. So how do we ensure that the numbers are good and the numbers can be consolidated and the whole thing can be little more streamlined? Today, like I said, right from understanding the word global supply chain, there is a problem. So maybe Ramanujam can first throw light on it, and then Mukundan can say, and then we can close.
Yes, sir. So we've done a little study on this, and we find if we were to only look at the cargo segment, there are about the workforce is about 12 million strong. And if we add the people transportation to it, the whole thing goes up to 22 million plus. So that's a kind of a numbers we are looking at. But more realistically, we wanted it. I mean, these are all macro numbers. So we said, can we break it down into something smaller? And what did we emerge? We emerged from 2020 to 25, 53 lakh requirement. That's almost 10 lakh requirement per year. Just about 5 days back, we had a meeting with the Additional Secretary MORD, and companies, about 15 of them, came up with a figure of 1.6 lakh, which is the demand as of date say, going forward till this pandemic lasts, say, let's say 31st March 2021. So this is the kind of a demand that is there. But having said that, yes, these are all at the warehousing level, at the bottom of the pyramid, etc. But there is, as Mr. Mukundan also said, there's a need for people who can think on their feet, warehousing professionals, supply chain professionals. So what are we doing about it? As a sector skill council, we have a largish governing council which comprises of the who's who of the logistics industry. The chairman TVS Supply Chain Solutions is our chairman, Mr. Dinesh, and we have the entire gamut of captains from the industry there. And we advocated apprenticeship as a route for skilled human resource in the logistics sector, which has been agreed upon. We have created the optional trades. The government has also given a major fillip to this by allowing apprenticeship optional trades to be created for the services sector, which till hitherto was not there. And they have promoted the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme for this. So these are all projects that we are taking on. Hopefully, logistics companies will take a larger buy-in. Right now, there are about 230 companies. We've got about 6,000 apprentices plus, but we would definitely like to scale up on this particular initiative. Going forward, we have embedded apprenticeship in the higher education system, and this has been a total winner. We have launched a BBA logistics, where in the odd semesters, candidates are in the colleges, even semesters, they are in the companies. Can you imagine 10 students are from Andhra Pradesh, Government College Rajahmundry, are working still in a warehouse in Haryana, despite throughout the pandemic period. I mean, and this is when we had recalled all of them, they still stayed back. That's the kind of a commitment which has come forward, which means India is in very, very safe hands with our youth. And in fact, this degree apprenticeship, based on the success of it, we've launched 6 BMS programs in agri storage and supply chain, aviation services and air cargo, maritime logistics, land transportation, e-commerce operations, EXIM and Express. And all these programs have, wherever we have launched, have already been subscribed for in the next year, 21-22. In fact, they've all been subscribed much before all other kind of programs. And this is because students are seeing value in it. In fact, parents who in the first program had sent me WhatsApp pictures of their child's palm, where it had some blisters because lifting a package and all that. The same parent has brought back her relative with their children to get enrolled for the next program, which means students are now convincing their parents that this is the kind of a program which is needed for us. And also, it gives them a degree, an apprenticeship certificate, some online courses, and above all, 180 days of work experience. And also, therefore, it gives them a sense of confidence, a sense of pride, and also the fact that they're also earning members for their family. So this we want to scale up. In fact, now the Ministry of Civil Aviation has directed us to launch a BMS program in civil aviation and in air cargo and aviation services. The capacity is 100. Already in 2 weeks' time, it is oversubscribed. There are 130 candidates now already enrolled for this particular program in the Rajiv Gandhi National Aeronautical University. And similarly, in IMU, we may be launching. And in short, to sum up, we are doing our bit, but of course, some may say it is too little, too late. But we need to be optimistic. Such kind of educational programs, it's also there in the new National Logistics Education Policy. It is also part and parcel of the new education policy. And hopefully more institutions would take up, and these candidates, once they go back to their jobs, which LS Logistics Skill Council ensures, I'm sure they will perform much better than their colleagues there. So there is a sense of professionalism which will come in. There will be a sense of good attitude that will also come in. So I feel overall, I think while the numbers do count, quality of manpower in a logistics supply chain is also something which we should not ignore. And these programs will ensure that we get quality manpower. I would just like to submit that logistics is no longer an enabling activity. It has become a driving activity. In fact, and that is where like manufacturing companies used to say, sales drives manufacturing. I would put it the other way. Actually, the supply chain and distribution, rather the distribution chain, is what drives the entire manufacturing. Thank you.
Okay, Mukranji, any further comments?
No, I think right on time.
Okay, okay, okay. So we conclude today's because we would like to stick to the time, and global supply chain is doing its own contribution, because the beauty of this particular sector is whatever may happen, manpower whose employment is one of the basic things for any sectorial growth, and this encompasses all the sectors. And even my own last count is, why not the call centers also should come under a global supply chain, because it's part of the supply chain. Because if they don't do well, your supply chain is not going to do well. So that, of course, is a separate sector by itself, because a huge sector in its own standing. So with that, maybe we will conclude, since our speakers have given whatever they have to give. So
Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
don't generally this.
Should we stay or leave?
Yeah, just a minute.
Okay, okay. No problem. Take your time. No hurry.
Hello. Ayani? Yeah. It has been a good time. The global supply chain is one of the
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much. So, is it over? So, should I conclude the discussion? Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Shekhar, for chairing the session, and our two eminent experts for sharing your view. Viewers, if you like our discussion, do like and subscribe our channel. Policy Times is committed to bring you the experts and the issues that can take the country to the next level, that can contribute to make India a better, a peaceful and prosperous nation. Keep watching the Policy Times.